History is filled with stories of lost armies, but few are as intriguing as the tale of Rome's missing legion, a band of warriors who supposedly disappeared from the battlefield, only to reappear thousands of miles away in ancient China. In d. 53 BCE, the Battle of Carrhae was a disaster for Rome. The mighty legions of Marcus Crassus, one of Rome's most powerful men, marched into Parthian territory, expecting an easy victory. Instead, they were crushed. The Parthians, masters of mounted warfare, outmaneuvered and slaughtered thousands of Roman soldiers. Those who survived were either executed or taken captive. But this is where history takes a strange turn. Some accounts claim that a group of Roman survivors wasn't executed but instead sent east. Ancient Chinese records describe warriors using fish scale formations, a tactic eerily similar to Rome's famous testudo, where soldiers locked their shields together in a nearly impenetrable wall. For centuries, this story was dismissed as myth. But in recent years, a strange mix of archaeological discoveries, historical documents, and even DNA evidence has forced historians to take a second look. Could Rome's lost sons have marched so far east that they became part of another empire? Instead of a quick death, some Roman prisoners were sent into forced service under Parthian rule. The Parthians, always looking for skilled warriors, decided to use their captives as border guards. These Romans were stationed along distant frontiers, defending trade routes and settlements against nomadic raiders. At some point, a group of these Roman warriors seems to have crossed another boundary, entering territories under Han Chinese influence. In 36 BCE, Chinese military records describe a battle between the Han Dynasty and a Central Asian kingdom allied with the remnants of the Parthians. The records mention foreign soldiers who fought in tight, disciplined formations, shocking the Han generals. Unlike the usual steppe warriors who relied on mobility, these men stood their ground, repelling attacks with a wall of shields. Could these have been the lost Romans, now fighting on a battlefield they never expected to see? The timing aligns perfectly. If the survivors of Carrhae had been moved east by the Parthians, they would have reached the outskirts of China's westernmost territories by this time. But how could a group of Roman soldiers, trained in the legions of the West, adapt to life in the East? The answer may lie in survival. These men, stranded thousands of miles from Rome, would have had no chance of returning home. Their best option was to integrate, offering their military expertise in exchange for protection and a new life. Some likely became mercenaries hired by local rulers, while others may have formed their own communities, blending into the societies around them. The most compelling clue in this mystery is a place called Liqian, a Chinese town in modern-day Gansu province. The name Liqian is fascinating because, in ancient Chinese texts, it was used to refer to Rome. This suggests that the settlement may have been linked to foreigners from the West, possibly even the lost Roman soldiers. But is there actual proof? Archaeologists have discovered evidence of ancient fortifications near Liqian that bear a striking resemblance to Roman military camps. Unlike typical Han Dynasty forts, which were designed in an organic layout, these structures follow precise rectangular designs similar to Roman camps. Some historians argue that this could be a coincidence, but others believe it suggests a direct Roman influence. But the most surprising evidence doesn't come from stone or written records. It comes from DNA. Modern genetic studies conducted in villages near Liqian have revealed unusual Mediterranean traits among some residents. Features such as lighter hair, deep-set eyes, and prominent noses appear more frequently in this area than in the surrounding population. Even more compelling, specific genetic markers linked to Europe and the Middle East have been found at significantly higher rates in these communities than elsewhere in China. Could these be the descendants of Rome's lost sons? While some experts caution that genetic mixing along the Silk Road could explain these traits, others argue that the concentration of Mediterranean markers in this isolated region suggests a much older, more significant migration. If Roman soldiers did settle in China, they wouldn't have remained isolated for long. Over time, they would have integrated into Chinese society, intermarrying, learning the language, and adopting new customs. But traces of their origins may have influenced Chinese military tactics, metallurgy, and even architecture. Chinese records from the period describe new defensive formations appearing on the battlefield, some resembling the Roman testudo. Was this a direct result of knowledge passed down from these Roman warriors? Even in construction, there are hints of foreign influence. Some forts in China's northwest frontier display structural designs more commonly associated with Roman engineering, including the use of materials similar to Roman concrete, which was unknown in traditional Chinese construction at the time. Han Dynasty artisans also began producing bronze statues that showed a surprising level of Greco-Roman anatomical realism, a stark contrast to the more stylized figures traditionally seen in Chinese art. Was this an artistic exchange inspired by these foreigners? Weapons too seemed to evolve. Some blades from this period show an unusual fusion of Roman-style hilts and Chinese forging techniques, creating weapons with enhanced durability, perfect for the harsh conditions of the frontier. Over generations, these Romans would have become fully integrated, their children growing up speaking Chinese, adopting local customs, and losing direct ties to their Western heritage. Yet their legacy, military, architectural, and genetic, remained embedded in the regions where they settled. So is this legend real? Skeptics argue that the genetic evidence isn't conclusive and that Mediterranean traits could have arrived through other means: Greek traders, Persian migrants, or Silk Road merchants. They also point out that fortifications, while similar in design to Roman structures, could simply be a result of practical military evolution rather than direct influence. But believers argue that the sheer weight of evidence, the historical records, military tactics, fort designs, and genetic studies make it difficult to dismiss entirely. If the story is true, then these lost Roman soldiers achieved something remarkable. Instead of being wiped from history, they adapted, survived, and contributed to a civilization thousands of miles from home. They became part of the Han Dynasty's legacy, influencing one of the greatest empires of the ancient world in ways we are only now beginning to understand. This isn't just a story about a lost legion. It's a story about how cultures collide, how warriors can reshape the world even in defeat, and how human resilience transcends borders, languages, and empires. Did the lost legion truly find its final home in China? Or is this just another tale distorted by time and myth? What we do know is that Rome's influence stretched farther than we ever imagined. Whether these soldiers truly settled in China or not, their story challenges everything we thought we knew about ancient global connections. Imagine Roman legionaries, once proud defenders of the Republic, standing watch over Chinese trade routes, training Han warriors, and leaving behind a legacy woven into the fabric of history itself. 2,000 years later, the echoes of their journey still intrigue us. Whether fact or legend, the tale of Rome's lost sons reminds us that history is far more connected than we often assume. Would you believe the lost Roman legion made it to China? Let us know in the comments.